Hello, good afternoon, good day, everybody. We just informed that we will start 5 minutes after the agreed time because, of course, participants are still signing in. We see that there is about 18 people on the connection. We are still waiting for about 40 to come. So maybe before we start the presentation, I will basically tell you a few words about our project. And while doing that, I will also prepare the screen. I hope you can see the screen. If not, let me know. Is it visible? Yes?
I can see it.
You can see it? Okay. And it's moving.
I think it's visible for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much for the confirmation. My name is Robert Gireiko, and I will be delivering today's info session together with my colleague Marta Sasela. I'm the team leader of the project, and Marta is the specialist expert in procurement and subgrants. We are conducting this activity and the innovation grants under the EU-funded action Capital Cities Collaborating in Common Challenges in Hazardous Waste Management, and these are Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana. So in the project, we have dealt with quite a number of issues related to municipal waste management and hazardous waste management in the 3 cities. The project is led by the Yerevan municipality, for which we are working here in Yerevan. The project started effectively in 2020. Unfortunately, like many others, it was affected by COVID and other difficulties here in Armenia. So we had a relatively slow start into the activities. However, the actions related to education, related to studies, and even some investments have moved ahead, and we are now in a full swing action of the project, hoping to complete by the end of this year, or given the possibility of extension, maybe end of next year, 2024. And today's session is, as announced, dedicated to innovation grants, which are effectively sub-grants given out by our project. Please kindly switch off your mics. Dear participants, please switch off your mics. I'm just trying to close these conversations. I'm sorry. People are not aware that they are talking online. Colleagues, could you please stop the conversation?
Dear Narendra, please mute your microphone. We are online.
Yes. Thank you. Please mute your mics. Okay, I think we're back to normal. I'm sorry about the disturbance. I'm sure it was not intended. So what I wanted to say is that innovation grants are an open competition to the participants which wish to work with the said 3 municipalities, Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana. And today we will try to provide you with all the details, all the explanations of this call for proposals, Marta together with myself. And we will take any questions you might have at this point, but also we will instruct you and inform you about possibilities of obtaining further clarifications, of submitting the applications, the schedule, etc., etc. So please, if you can, write down any questions you might have while we present, and we will give you at least one session of open questions, maybe even 2 sessions. We will see how this develops. So you will have opportunity to ask questions that could be interesting to you. So I think we can start. We have 20 participants. That means that half of the registered ones are not with us or are not with us yet, but that also could increase the chances of winners among those who participate. So let's see how this all develops. And there was somebody complaining that they cannot hear us. I hope this is fixed, and I'm being heard. Could anybody confirm that I'm broadcasting? Or is everybody now
Yes,
afraid to speak?
You are.
I am okay. I'm being heard. Thank you. That's good, because I would not like to to talk and not be heard. Okay, so on the project now, it's another issue. I cannot move my presentation. Let me restart the presentation. Technicalities. We should be okay in a moment. I hope. Yes, now it's working. We can talk. So again, this is EU-funded project, and we are opening innovation grants for municipal waste management. This includes also hazardous waste management. The announcement was made on if I remember correct, 24th of February, I'm sorry. And the deadline for applications is 7th of April, but we will provide you with much more information now as we present the grant scheme, the innovation grants. You see, this is very funny, but I really, I can move with my mouse. Okay. So I'm sorry about that. Now it's clear. I hope you can see the presentation, the slides.
Yes, yes.
So the global objective of these innovation grants is to improve municipal waste and household waste management. And of course, this is to be done by promotion and development of innovations, smart solutions, digital solutions, digital or other applications for better management of municipal waste and household hazardous waste. Just to be clear, for different countries, it is a different definition, but municipal waste is the one that is communal waste, as we call it. So households mainly. In some countries, this also includes communal waste from commerce, from businesses, but this excludes industrial waste. And then household hazardous waste is again the fraction of municipal waste which is hazardous and which comes from the households. In our call for proposals, we have 4 specific objectives which reflect and are described by separate lots. So each lot has a different geographical scope, coverage, and we go to the specific objectives and specific lots now. I just have to be careful when switching to the next slide because my presentation is sort of jumpy. So sorry about that. For the first specific objective, lot number 1, we are looking at ideas, project ideas and projects, which would provide innovations and smart solutions in municipal waste and household hazardous waste management. This could include possibly digital applications or mobile applications, which could then help citizens recognize household hazardous waste, identify it, increase their participation in segregation and separate treatment. And of course, there is one caveat. The issue is that in Yerevan and in Tirana, the regulations are not really specific on household hazardous waste, while in Warsaw, this is a case. There is, I mean, EU waste directives are transposed, and hazardous waste is to be separately collected and separately treated. Nevertheless, provision of information to citizens or provision of information how to behave responsibly could be developed under these under this lot, under the innovations that your organizations could develop. And of course, this also means increasing citizens' participation in prevention of hazardous waste generation and proper management, and also working on initiatives and policies related to household hazardous waste prevention and so on. So the spectrum of ideas could be broad, but this lot is the most, I would say, the most demanding one, because you will be working on a solution that would be considered by us universal and would be applicable and usable by Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana municipalities. This, of course, adds complications in terms of languages used and the beneficiaries to be served and to be collaborated with. So this lot is probably one of the most complex. And for this lot, we could imagine that the applicant, from one country could lead a consortium with another applicant or even 3 applicants together. But we do not, of course, foreclose or stop you or anybody else who will apply from combining powers with others or coming along to this competition. So this is lot 1. And as I said, it is worth to remember that this lot will serve Yerevan and Warsaw and Tirana at the same time. The second lot and the second specific objective, and the third and the fourth, what is important is to understand that they are geographically isolated. So if you look down, lot number 2, this applies to Yerevan. Lot 3, this applies to Warsaw. And lot 4, excuse me, this applies to Tirana only. Now, these actions that could be proposed and the areas of interest have been predefined by each one of the municipalities, where they basically had a choice of long list of activities or sections of their waste management practices, and where they would like to see innovative ideas, smart solutions implemented. So for Yerevan, this is better communication with inhabitants, collection of feedback, awareness raising on specific issues, fractions, and solutions for municipal waste and household hazardous waste. Then also improved management of bio-waste, improved collection and transportation and handling operations of municipal waste in Yerevan. So as you see, there are 3 areas where you could, propose a project and improve the systems. We understand that also because of the grants value of the project sizes, we will not be able to address, waste management systems in totality. We have to be much more narrow at this point. But of course, if you provide a solution that is scalable, then the cities could pick it up and then develop further, even on commercial basis. For specific objective and lot 3, which is Warsaw, there is 1 area only, and this is better communication, feedback, and awareness raising with the citizens. And Warsaw is particularly interested to develop their existing communication platforms, which are connected with the segregation program and also the general municipal communication line, phone line. This is how it started. And then we have lot number 4, which is exclusive to Tirana. And this has different areas. So better organization of waste management for mass events. Again, improved collection and handling operations for waste management, tariff systems, and improved management of CAS sites, civic amenity sites, which are dedicated to segregation and collection of separate waste streams There is one limitation which I should share with you. For the moment, there are no civic amenity sites. So if we talk about improved management, projects on this topic should be consulted with the municipality of Tirana, and also maybe something that is very initial could be developed for civic amenity site functions. And this is the scope of the projects, the thematic scope of the projects. I now switch to Marta. She will give you more information about the money, which is always important.
Yes, thank you, Robert. So in the next slide that I think is coming,
Yes.
I will provide you with some key figures, about this call for proposal. First of all, with the overall indicative amount that is made available under this call, that is 162,000 euros. Here, dear participants, maybe some of you have taken already a look at the call and may be slightly puzzled by this figure, because in the call for proposal, there are some zeros more that make this amount a little bit more significant. We have to apologize for this. The amount was reflecting probably our wish to have a bigger allocation for this interesting initiative, but unfortunately we don't have 162 million and just 162,000 euros. This detail will be revised in the call for proposal, so please consider this slide as final. I would also like to point out that there are some limitations concerning the financial size of the projects. You should keep in mind, if I say when, I hope all of you will submit an application. So when you will develop your application, you should keep in mind that the total value of the project should be included between 25,000 euros and 45,000 euros. It should be in this interval. Basically, when I talk about total value of the project, I refer to the budget. You will have a budget, you will prepare the budget with everything disappeared, I hope. Okay. You will have, sorry, the screen, my screen had a problem. When you will prepare the budget, you will insert all your costs, and after inserting all your costs, you will draw the total and calculate the grand total of the project. This grand total must be included between this minimum and maximum. It's important because if it is not, your project will not considered suitable for evaluation. So just have this in mind. Another important element to be considered from the financial point of view is that the applicant, every applicant, is required to co-finance at least 10% of the total project cost with its own resources. This means that, for example, if the value of the project is 40,000 euros, at least 4,000 should come from applicants' own resources. I want to highlight, as it is underlined in the slide, to highlight that I'm talking of minimum 10%. We will talk about this when discussing the evaluation, but it's important for you to have in mind that it is possible to co-finance with a higher rate of own resources, so more than 10%, and these projects that are co-financed with a higher rate of own resources may receive a higher score. So you may have an advantage in the evaluation phase if you do so. Basically, this is the main information. I would like now to go ahead to the next slide and take a look at the rules of eligibility for the applicants. First of all, let me introduce one let's say, basic element about this call. Under this call, an application can be submitted by a lead applicant alone or in partnership, either or. I mean, there are these two options. If in partnership, it is possible to have one co-applicant. If we look at the criteria of eligibility for lead applicant, the following categories of entities are considered eligible. First of all, micro, small, or medium-sized enterprises, the so-called SMEs. For this category, under this call, the EU definition of small medium enterprise is applied. Now, I'm not entering in details, but we are talking of enterprises having fewer than 250 employees and having a turnover that is not exceeding 50 million euro or equivalent, of course, in other currencies. If you are in this category and wish to have some doubts about your eligibility, I suggest that you consult the guidelines for applicants because you will find in footnote reference to a document with a precise definition that is slightly more complex than this, but I think I provided the key elements. Other entities that are eligible are research institutions, research and development institutions, so entities that have research as their core object of activity, and then also higher education institutions. An additional criterion, given these four categories, an additional criterion is concerning the registration of such entities. Basically, to be eligible, an entity must be alive, existing since more or less 1 year. It must be legally registered before the 31st of March of 2022. A third criterion that is quite important concerns the location where this entity is established. As Robert was explaining, we have 4 lots. The geographical scope of each lot is different. And so also the criterion for eligibility of the lead applicant is different. For lot 1, that is multi-country, the applicant must satisfy the previous criteria and also be established either in Armenia or in Poland or in Albania. For lots 2, 3, 4, the requirement is different because they are focused each on a specific country. So for lot 2, the entity to be eligible as lead applicant, the entity must be established in Armenia. For lot 3, it must be established in Poland. For lot 4, same thing. It must be established in Albania. If we move to the next slide, we see the eligibility requirements in case you want to have a co-applicant. You may say that this slide is the same, and in fact, I confirm it's almost the same as before. The 4 categories in the bullets are exactly the same. Same is the requirement for registration, but the table at the bottom is different. For co-applicant, the requirement on the location where the entity, let's say, proposed co-applicant is established is much easier. First of all, we have one criterion for all the lots. I see a question and I'm picking it up. There is a question, can applicant for other countries apply? The reply is yes, they can apply as co-applicants only. Entities that, let's say, are eligible as co-applicants under all the lots if they are established in EU member states, United Kingdom, that is no more EU member state, but is still included in the eligible countries, countries of the European Economic Area, and also in any country that is eligible for the EU pre-accession support and for EU neighborhood instrument support. Now, I suppose that the applicants may think, okay, member states are quite easy. I can think of them, but I don't know which countries are these eligible for this and that. If you take a look at the guidelines for applicants, section 211, you will find in footnote all the lists of all these countries. So just consult there if you have a doubt, if you want to have a co-applicant in a country, you're not sure and you want to check. There is something that actually in the slides in the lower corner that I'm afraid is not visible. There is a reference to the paragraph of the guidelines where this information is included. I suppose maybe Robert can confirm that we will make these slides available in some way. And so when you will have the presentation visible on your screen without the Zoom, how to say, toolbars that are located here and there, you will also be in condition to easily identify the relevant paragraph where you can find detailed information.
I think we can publish the presentation in the package together with any other information after the session.
Yeah, I think it can also facilitate the consultation of the guidelines that sometimes are not a very user-friendly document. Okay, regarding the eligibility of co-applicant, this is it. In the next slides, there are some elements to be considered about the partnership. First of all, as I said, partnership is possible, but it's also possible to present an application alone. Maximum one co-applicant. Here I have a recommendation that is perhaps obvious. There is no specific advantage in having or not having a co-applicant. The advice is to have a co-applicant only if this entity is really useful to the project. So if you have a co-applicant, it should have a relevant expertise and it should have a role in the project, and you will be asked to explain what role the co-applicant has. So please keep it in mind. A second element I would like to point out, because it's perhaps somehow unusual in call for proposals, is that there is no limit to the number of applications you can submit. Ideally, you can be lead applicant and submit one or two or how many applications as you want, and also be co-applicant in other applications. You're totally free to decide how many. The only note we want to add is that, unfortunately, we don't have the 162 millions. Our resources are limited, and we ideally expect to finance one project per lot. Possibly, so there will be 4 projects, maybe we will have 5, but we will not be able to finance many of them. So, I mean, make your own considerations about the numbers of applications that you want to submit, having this in mind.
Thank you, Marta. And maybe one more addition from me. I was not clear in the beginning how many co-applicants and applicants there could be for lot 1, but like for all the other lots, you can have maximum 1 co-applicant. So that means there cannot be three partners in an application. Maximum 2 partners. So the lead and the co-applicant. That's the maximum. So now we move on to the subject which is related to the types of actions which are eligible or which are requested. And here you have a description that is basically explaining, but in a non-exclusive format, the types of actions and solutions that could be offered. In your project action, we call it action or project interchangeably. And we invite the following types of activities or actions: research and development and innovation, which could include design, prototyping, testing, coding, programming, and similar activities. that could be also design and prototyping. It doesn't have to be limited to digital solutions. These could be also technology or technical designs and solutions. Promotion of the developed mobile or online applications, any other innovations, smart solutions. Again, these could be wide-ranging. So digital, yes, mobile, yes, but also this could include organizational communications that could also be industrial solutions or technology solutions. And then finally, intellectual protection of the developed mobile online applications, innovations, and smart solutions. So we want, or we allow you through the project to provide and to finance the intellectual protection for the developed solutions, which could mean filing for a patent or protecting in some other ways, such as utility design protection, etc. Why we do that is to promote innovation and to make sure that organizations, entities which apply, and if they are interested to commercialize these solutions later on, they are able to do that. So intellectual property protection is definitely one of the elements which we will recognize and also financially support. Duration of the project is maximum 12 months. However, we are in a situation where we, as the grantor, the organizer of these innovation grants, we are considering and asking the EU, who is the sponsor of this project, the funder, for an extension of implementation period. So you will be informed when appropriate, but for the moment we are asking for maximum 12 months projects of duration of 12 months. Locations are the locations where the applicant, co-applicant is located. And also, of course, if you're working with Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana, these locations are allowed, but they could be other locations because you could be having your staff located some other places of the globe. And then it's just for you to explain how the team is composed, where the team members are located, and we are not excluding any other locations as long as they are justified or explained. So we have to also remind or tell you that the actions, eligible actions, must contribute or actually produce some concrete outputs and results, and these are obligatory. We will explain them moving forward with the presentation. So now we go to each of the lots and we discuss the types of actions and activities which are eligible, which are foreseen by us. But as I say, this is non-exclusive spectrum, although the themes should be respected. So we don't want just a solution that you want. We want the solutions that the grantor wants, so ourselves or the specific city. And here you have for the lot one, which again I remind you is Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana taken together. Possibility of developing a digital application, mobile, online, mixed, adaptation of existing digital applications if they are in place. Of course, we will not recognize any existing applications to be supported. So this has to be new functions or new additions or applications on top of the existing solutions. And also you can license out this new digital application, mobile or online. Maybe before I move forward, just one thing I should maybe add to the eligible applicants, because it is not clear from our presentation until this moment. We invite any category of the described applicants. So this could be public or private bodies. Of course, SMEs are not public unless they are from very tiny municipalities, but normally this is not the case. If you're a private, if you're a private SME, if you are a private research institution or private university, polytechnic, you are also invited to participate. So there is no not-for-profit requirement under these innovation grants. Okay, moving on to the types of actions. What is expected is that the developed application, the developed solution will help citizens, inhabitants to recognize household hazardous waste, to switch from household products which contain hazardous elements, and also help them to properly dispose of this type of waste. But they should again cover Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana municipalities or other local authorities if you wish to expand your project scope. Then we have promotion and dissemination activities which relate to promoting your solution, making it known, and also possibly even commercializing in that way. So the solution you develop doesn't have to be free to everybody. It could be later on sold on commercial terms. So you could license it out to anybody else, remembering that Yerevan and Warsaw and Tirana will not pay for a license because they are supported by us. And then, of course, you could assess the options, feasibility, test the market for your solution, for your product, and that would be also eligible under Lot 1. Continuing, digital application should be made, or online application mixture should be made available to at least the citizens of these 3 cities. And if it's not specific locally, it should be applicable in terms of each country that is mentioned, or internationally usable, and have features that could easily allow this application to be adopted to a specific local context. So, for example, if you develop a household hazardous products recognition, they should be available to people who speak different languages naturally. So in these 3 countries, we have 3 languages. Possibly English would be another one to be used in a wider context. They could be made, the solutions that you develop or the applications could be made available or an open license or fee-based license. And then this is the limitation which makes a difference to the 3 beneficiary cities of our project. Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana municipalities should be offered a free of charge license for the next 5 years from the end date of your project. So whatever you develop goes for free to Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana, and could be sold to other municipalities or other users of that solution. I'm sorry, my phone is not collaborating with me. So this is the lot number 1. And as we said, this has to combine solutions for 3 cities. Moving
There
on.
is, dear Robert, there is also a question in the chat regarding the eligibility.
And it only there can be no, and every application is open in terms of innovation. I mean, presentation will be provided after. Please, we will definitely take this question into consideration and provide a written answer. Now, I don't want to mislead you, because it depends really what we have in the guidelines. And I think we have in the guidelines only digital application in lot 1, but no, actually this is including digital applications. So no, I can answer right away. This could be hardware device development. This could be also a mixture of hardware or equipment and digital solutions. So you could use Internet of Things solutions, you could use machine learning, you could use artificial intelligence, but also you could use technologies which are not digital as a mixture. So there could be wider use. And I refer it to the earlier slide, which we showed, which is introduction of innovations and smart solutions, including digital applications to citizens of these 3 cities. The purpose here is to recognize household hazardous waste and increase participation and improve practices in the 3 cities. So this is clearly the correct answer, unless Marta says it is no. I always have to listen to Marta on this subject.
No, in fact, when it comes to the call and what is specified in the specific objective, what you say is true. At the same time, I'm checking the call for proposal. Sorry, now I lost the page. What is proposed as indicative activities, and it talks about the digital application. What I would suggest is that we consider this carefully and provide a written answer just to be sure.
Sure.
And don't, as you mentioned.
So
not
let's make this sort of disclaimer and reservation. Whatever answers are provided today at the session, they are non-binding, because the procedure has to be clear and transparent for everybody. And there could be applicants who are not participating in this session. We will provide all the answers in accordance with the guidelines, or we will modify the guidelines, seeking to be as clear as possible. And these will be published together with the call for proposals documentation in the coming days. And also any written answers will be published at the date which is indicated. I think it is 24 of March or somewhere there. We will not provide you with the recorded audio. I think it's a huge file, but we will see if it's possible. Definitely, we agreed to circulate the presentation. Okay, so moving on. Under lot 1, we have described the types of activities. Under lot 2, this one is reserved for Yerevan, for Armenia. This could be any R&D and innovation activities as mentioned earlier. And that means prototyping, testing, coding, programming, alpha, digital solution, beta, then commercialization or standardization, also purchase of any necessary or linked equipment or services. So if you think about a comprehensive solution that requires some monitoring devices or some communication devices to work, or computers or whatever, you are free to purchase that and give it as a package to the respective municipality. In our case, in lot 2, that would be Yerevan municipality. And also you can develop any innovations and any smart solutions in the following priority areas. I mentioned them before, so I don't think I have to repeat, but basically it is communication on waste management, management of bio-waste, and collection, transportation, and handling operations of the municipal or household hazardous waste. The lot number 3, which is specifically for Poland, for Warsaw, again, the same types of activities are welcomed, and they should concentrate only on one area, subsector or sub element of the waste management system, which is communication with inhabitants, feedback, and awareness raising. So instructing the citizens how, where to dispose of municipal waste, segregate, separately collect household hazardous waste, etc. And as I mentioned before, Warsaw is highly interested in getting additional functionalities and uses for their website and application. You have the names here. You can go online and check how they work, what is missing, what could be improved. So there is a clearly sort of easy definition of the projects for Warsaw, which would be most appreciated and highly evaluated. And then we move to Albania, to Tirana. And again, you have research and development and innovation activities, broad definition. And the priority areas are organization of waste management for mass events. So this is, mass concert, public happenings, maybe sports games or others, where you could develop specific procedures and technology to manage those. Then collection, transportation, handling operations of waste, which is bins, trucks, transport roads, etc., etc. Tarification, tariff collection systems. So that could be leading to improvement of collection of fees from the citizens. It could also lead to design of a different system to set the tariff. And finally, we already mentioned the management of civic amenity sites or civic amenity systems. And for those who are not familiar with civic amenity sites, let's just say that these are either locations and facilities where normally you can bring your own waste for segregation and recycling or problematic waste, or these could be also mobile CAS operating on scheduled basis throughout the city. So I think this is more or less what I would like to tell you about the eligible activities. And now Marta will run you through the obligatory outputs and results, which you have to deliver if you decide to apply. Please. Just
Here I am. Yes,
maybe,
please.
Just a question that showed up. Is there any restriction on creating platform that will be free of charge for any user and not just 3 minutes? No, there is no restriction. You can open your application to everybody free of charge, or you can charge any other users, but not Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana. And then what type of proposal should it be? Proof, concept type, or MVP showcase? Well, I do not understand the question, so maybe that would need to be defined. Does anybody know what is MVP? That's our question. Yes, maybe that's the mobile viable product, minimal viable product. So you are using, I think, jargon from a commercialization point of view. I think what we want is that concept is definitely not what is wanted, but minimum viable product, yes. So that means for me a solution that works, and that will be decided by us judging your application, reading your application, and saying yes, that is good enough and gets a positive score, or it is too poor to be considered for financing. So it all depends on how you present and what you present. But to be clear, please now let's move to the outputs and results. You will be, I think, clear on what must be delivered. Marta Jan.
Yes, as Robert was mentioning in a previous slide, the projects are required to achieve concrete outputs and concrete results. Actually, these outputs, when I say outputs, I mean immediate products of the action. And when I say result, I mean some immediate effect generated by the action. These outputs and results are represented in these 5 indicators. This table of indicators that you see in the slide is the same that you can find in the guidelines for applicants in section 1.2, and you will find it also in the application form. In the application form, you will be required to provide a quantification, so to explain, having in mind your project idea, what will be achieved, what will be produced, both in terms of outputs and what you think you can achieve in terms of results. Actually, I would like, for the sake of clarity, to enter in some of the indicators. For example, in my opinion, the most important output indicator, that is O1, that is number of technical and organizational improvements, innovation, and smart digital solution for waste management developed. Under this indicator, you will be required to specify how many of these innovations or solutions that you intend to develop in the project that you propose. Considering what we were explaining until now, the objectives of the call, the type of activities, the type, the focus of every lot, I think it's clear to everybody that this indicator is very central, and the expected output, the number of products, so the number of innovation and smart digital solutions developed must be at least 1. It must be 1 or more than 1. It cannot be 0. Why am I specifying this? In the application form, you will find detailed information about how quantifying these indicators. In some cases, you are also allowed to put 0 because your projects are, let's say, supposed to achieve some of these outputs, but not all of them. In any case, for O1, for sure, you should produce at least 1 of those. I would also move and briefly explain, indicators, output indicators O2 and O3 refer to the nature of innovation and smart digital solutions. So in O2 refers to innovation and smart digital solutions that are conceived, developed as intellectual protected intellectual property, sorry. And O3 instead refers to innovation and smart digital solutions that are developed as open source. In this case, it's just, let's say, a kind of sub-classification of the products that will be generated. Let's take a glance at the result indicators. Result indicators are focusing on the number of users that you expect to utilize this innovation or smart solution that will be developed in the framework of the project. There are 2 categories identified. One is institutional users. One is named as end users that are basically the citizens. Here, you will be supposed to make an estimate and tell us which category of users you expect and how many of them. Of course, this very much depends on the nature of the innovation or smart digital solution that you will conceive, because some may be interesting only for institutional users. Some are maybe designed just for citizens. Some possibly can be interesting for both or can have advantages for both. And so it will be up to you to identify the right category and make a correct estimate of how many users you expect to have. In this case, on indicators, what I would like to say, and especially on result indicators, what I would like to say is try to be realistic. I mean, we don't need you to reach 100,000 persons. You will be required to achieve such target as much as possible. So try to be realistic and try to think what the real possible feasible dimension of your project can be in terms of users that you can reach.
And also, I would say that referring to the question before, this minimally viable product, please note that the result indicators must be offered. So you cannot have a product that is without users or is not put in use. So your project has to end up with an application, with a solution that is actually utilized in the lifetime of the project. So you have to consider carefully because you will be responsible for that delivery. and as Marta mentioned, there is no point in being over ambitious, but you cannot just develop a solution and say, we have a nice prototype, that's the end of the project. That's impossible or not acceptable. Now
Yes,
we move to the costs which are eligible. Just before we move to the costs, maybe one word of, I don't know if it's called advice or something, but I would suggest that when looking into your project scope, you try to see what is really available from our funding. The grants are not huge. So if you decide to work with one or the other city or the third city, or if you decide to work with all of them, please sort of put the resources that we offer against the reality of what could be produced. What I mean by this? I mean by this the following options or solutions. Either you develop a narrow specific solution if you consider that the resources are limited, or you can limit your project geographically. So for example, you don't have to already serve the whole city, one of the cities, for example, Yerevan. You can choose solution for one of the districts to be piloted and put in use. So you have a digital solution or other solution, and we say, we will introduce it together with the city in one of the districts. If this is the case, I mean, we would like to see a solution that will allow the city to easily replicate and expand the system. So for example, if you develop that for one district, you can say the city provided XYZ funds can increase the scope of this function rapidly, within 1 year time or something, because your solution or our solution, as you would say, is easily scalable. So that would be something that is considered okay, and we would not be against, but you have to be smart, I would say, twice. So first of all, in the application, and then of course in the solution provided. So that is very much appreciated. And you have to think when we talk about costs, what is the realistic size of your project, considering the cost that you have of human resources and others. Marta, back to you.
Yes, I think
moving the slides.
Yes, I think it's enough on outputs and results. Now let's talk about eligible costs. So first of all, the guidelines for applicants in section 213, again, it's in the corner below that we cannot see, or at least I cannot see. The guidelines specify several categories of eligible costs. Before entering in these categories, I would like, however, to stress a more general concept, that is the concept of necessity. First of all, to be eligible for the project, for any project, quite frankly, a cost must be necessary to the implementation, meaning that you cannot do the project without that cost. This in practice has two implications. So if when you prepare your budget, you insert a cost that is in any of the categories of eligible costs that are mentioned, but you cannot justify such cost as being needed to implement the project, then such cost cannot be considered eligible. Conversely, if we look it in the other way around, it may also happen. I mean, we try to be as exhaustive as possible when writing this list of eligible costs, but maybe we were not. If in your project, when you draft the budget, you identify a cost that is not fitting in these categories that I will present in the next slides, but you can justify that you really cannot do the project without that, and you can explain why, then its eligibility can be considered. So, I mean, keep always in mind this concept of necessity, because it's really at the very heart of cost eligibility. This being said, I would like now to analyze some of the categories of costs. First of all, as you understood until now, the awarded projects are expected to develop some products, innovative products, applications, or other things. And so it is expected that there will be a project team, some staff working and doing activities, researching, or I don't know, developing, designing, coding, testing, I have no idea what else, or performing maybe promotional tasks when this application is ready, or other things. There will be, therefore, a group of human resources. Of course, the cost of staff, the cost of this project team is eligible. Let's say that the cost will be eligible in what form? In the form of gross salaries. This, of course, is for the staff members that are your employees or will be hired through a labor contract, or in the form of fees, if these persons are instead contracted with the service contract, or in any case as consultants, freelance providers, whatever the case. The eligibility is just for the time really worked for the project, of course. So if you have a full-time employee and it works for the project just half of her time, of course, you will charge half of her time to the project. I think, yes, please.
Just one note on the gross salaries. We mean by this gross salaries. So the full cost to the employer, which means the gross salary and also any social contributions that are obligatory by the law.
Yes. What is excluded are ad hoc bonuses or other things, but anything that is part of the regular remuneration and the social costs is indeed included. Here, I would like, before analyzing the other categories, I would like to make a brief digression and to step ahead to the application form, because there are some important informations that you should have in mind. In the application form, in the section that you see in the slides, the part in italics, in section 264, Innovation or Smart Digital Solution Development and Promotion Team, you will be required to present the name and the position of the project team leader. You will also be required to attach a CV, or better, to include a CV, because there is a template for this CV. This is a must, it's mandatory. If the application does not include this mention, does not indicate the project team leader, it will be considered incomplete. In this section, you also have the possibility to indicate the name of research, development, ICT, whatever kind of specialists or experts that you want to be part of your team. This, as I mentioned, is optional. You don't have to, but we really recommend you to indicate these persons if you have someone with the right skills in mind or some experts that you trust for the position in mind. Why? If you decide not to mention the other members of the team, and then you are awarded the project, you will be required to recruit your team by launching either a competitive procedure or a procurement procedure, depending on how you want to hire these persons. And so you will have to run these procedures and look for people on the market. You may end up having people you don't know or experts you don't have in mind. If you specify the names in the applications, you will not be asked to run a competitive procedure. So this is to say that if you have really people you trust, maybe some people you know, you collaborate with, and you know that are up to the task and are the right persons, it can be advisable, because you will have the team with the people you know, people you trust, and you will also avoid, let's say, spending time in performing such selection procedures to recruit the members of the team. What I would like to point out, however, is that if you mention the project team leader and other persons in the application, then you cannot change them. I mean, it's, or better, you can replace them if it is impossible, but if you replace the persons you mentioned, you will then be required to run this competitive procedure. I mean, so if you mention the people in the application, be sure that these are the persons you really want and that they are available.
I think our intention was to make your life easier, basically, by saying if you have a list of the people involved in your application, then you are free from running procurement procedures of competitive nature. And also we open up the staff categories to labor contracts and other civil type of contracts, because we know that in the programming world, a lot of cooperation happens on freelance basis. It also happens between companies, but we could not sort of say, you know, you can buy any services from anybody based on your wish. So what we could do was done, and you can utilize it to your advantage to make your project implementation easier. Should we move on?
Yes, just let me remind that whatever type of contract, the salary that you declare or the fees you declare must be in line with the market or in line with what you usually pay for a similar position. I mean, you must be able to prove that you are not paying fees or salaries that are different from what you would usually pay.
As
Okay,
in any
project.
Grants, you have to be economical, you have to economize the money, and basically the usual rates must be used, market rates, which are typically also, I mean, with some relation to what any applicant would pay to the specialists. So if we will see that there is some doubt, we will of course ask you, even if you win the grant, to maybe correct these rates or maybe negotiate them to some extent. So basically, I mean, keep it normal, keep it standard, and it should be fine.
Definitely. Okay, moving on. Here you have some more categories of eligible costs. Actually, you see that the word necessary is repeated everywhere. Basically, eligible costs include the cost to purchase equipment of tools that you need to implement the action. You may also need to purchase some IT applications, or perhaps to purchase external services to implement your project. Just to make an example, we were talking about promotion before. You may want, maybe you think your entity, your company or entity or whatever the nature is not skilled to make a good promotional activity. You may want to hire, to contract some specialist to make a small promotional work, or some other external services that may be relevant, especially to lot one that is multi-country, are translation costs. You may need to hire a professional translator to translate from Armenian, Polish, Albanian, and maybe using English as language that everybody understands. And so also these translation costs will be eligible. Translation services, cost of translation services will be eligible. And a category I would like to focus on is the last one. As we were talking about the possibility of having applications or digital solutions that are developed as protected intellectual property, you should note that the costs of any procedure that is required in your country to protect intellectual property are also considered eligible costs under this project. If we move to the subsequent slide, sorry. Another category of eligible costs is traveling. If this, if you can prove, if you can justify that traveling is necessary to implement the action, you can cover the traveling and subsistence costs of project staff or other persons that are involved in the action. Of course, this must be justified in case it is needed. Other costs are costs for design services, to design, create, produce, print in any form promotional materials. If you need to prepare some materials to promote this innovation, smart mobile application, smart solution, or whatever you will develop. Again, you may want to organize some form of promotional or information event in any combination, offline, online, hybrid, whatever you consider. Any cost for this is also eligible, of course, both organization, etc. What again is important is that such event is indeed linked to the promotion or is linked to the project, and this can be justified. Another issue I would like to remark concerns the visibility materials. If you will be awarded, you will receive a sub-grant that is provided by our project, but is essentially in large part European Union money. The visibility of the donor must always be promoted in the project. This is specified in the call for proposal, is specified also in the contract, and is a contractual obligation. In general, to do this, some specific visibility materials are prepared. The most obvious are banners or posters that display the title of your project and indicate where the financing comes from, where the sub-grant comes from, which means EU and means our project. And of course, the cost of such products will be covered and considered eligible in the framework of the project. Another issue that it's quite important is that VAT or any other tax that you may have to pay in the framework of the project, and for the legislation of your country you're not able to recover, will also be considered eligible, because in that case, if you cannot recover, of course, it is a cost for you, and then it becomes an eligible cost. If it can be recovered, of course, it cannot be declared as cost. The last bullet is closing with what I said before. If this list is not exhaustive, if there is a cost that is necessary but is not here, please insert it in the budget, provided that you can duly justify and explain why. In the budget, you will have a spreadsheet where you can write all the justifications that you consider appropriate. You're muted, Robert.
Yes, yes. Where you can, you are requested to provide justifications of the cost. Just maybe one example of the other costs which are justified. I mean, imagine you must purchase some license from a third party before you develop your application. So, for example, the cost of this license, if justified, would be definitely eligible. So, you know, think about the necessary components that you must procure and have to develop the output, the product that you intend to, and then the list will be clear for you. We have one chat question, bank commissions. Well, bank commissions are an eligible cost, because if you need to transfer money, yes, usually these are not super high, so definitely operational costs linked to the project, not bank commissions for any other business that you might run would be eligible. So it has to be proportional, it has to be necessary, it has to be economical, etc., etc. And we will check the budgets, whether you win the grant or not. Budgets are subject for verification and also for adjustments if we see that there is something that is, let's say, inflated or not really clear. We move on to the indirect costs.
Yes, maybe in any case, the awarded project will be asked to create a dedicated account. So it will be, I mean, quite easy to identify which bank commissions are relevant and which are not.
True.
Yeah. Yes, regarding indirect costs, it's important and interesting to know that 5% of the total amount of direct costs of the action can be claimed as indirect costs. What does it mean? When you will prepare the budget, maybe some of you have already checked the template of the budget and seen that there are several budget lines where the different costs that are considered necessary will be inserted. After preparing this part and inserting all the costs, the staff costs, costs for services, costs for supplies that you consider necessary, you will draw a total, and that will be the total amount of direct eligible costs. Once you have calculated this amount, there is a further step. You can calculate the 5% of this amount and insert it in the budget in the headline 7. When you will look at the template, you will see this headline 7 that is indirect costs, and you can insert there 5% of the total of these direct eligible costs. What are basically the indirect costs? Indirect costs are, let's say, under some point of view, a concept that is not so easy to explain. Definitely, they are not direct costs. An indirect cost is a cost that is not directly linked to the implementation of the action, but is at the same time incurred in connection with such implementation and in connection with the direct costs. A second element to be considered is that an indirect cost is eligible if it doesn't include the costs that are mentioned in those budget lines I was mentioning before. So saying it in an easier way, if you declare a cost, either it is direct or it is indirect. You cannot have a direct cost and also then consider that you want to claim it as indirect. I suppose that now you will be a little bit puzzled and maybe think that you didn't understand what I mean. So I would like to make an example. We were talking about your project staff, for example. Work cost, labor costs, or freelance costs are obviously direct costs. They are really directly connected to the work they do and to the project. But let's imagine that these people are working. They must be working somewhere. Maybe some will work from home, but for the sake of this example, let's imagine that you want your project staff to work from your project office, from your office, so that a room of your office will be allocated to the project and they work from there. Let's also imagine that you rent your office, but it's also not strictly necessary. This is to explain that your staff, apart from having some labor costs or some freelance costs, is also costing something else to your organization. They work in a space, so there is maybe a portion of the rental that you pay for this space, and that is paid to provide a space to the project. They are also provided a location with electricity that is cleaned by, I don't know, some cleaning lady that has some facilities. And these facilities, maybe it has heating. So this is to say that a portion, in this example that I'm making, a portion of rental, a portion of heating, a portion of, I don't know, the water costs, a portion of anything you pay for your office is actually part included in the project costs. As you can understand, it's very difficult to classify such costs as direct because they are not directly connected to the activities these people implement, but at the same time, they are incurred because they do the project. This is a typical example of indirect costs. They are costs that cannot be identified as direct, but they are at the same time real costs that the applicant organization is having to implement the project. In order to facilitate the declaration of such costs, there is this provision, this flat rate provision of 5% that is meant exactly to refund the organization, to cover the organization for these small costs that would be difficult, if not impossible, to declare as direct. I hope I more or less clarified this. If you have questions, just post them and we will try to provide further clarifications.
Maybe one express clarification on the indirect costs as an example. Let's say you have a president of your organization who is not in the project team, but his time is engaged for promotion of the project, working with you, overseeing the operation, etc. So a fraction of his or her salary could be assigned to the project under the category of indirect costs. The same could go for financial department, accountants, etc.,
yeah.
etc., maintenance of the general office, general promotion of the company, and so on. But let's say that your intention, your task is to really consider all the projects connected directly or indirectly to the project and try to finance, provide a budget that basically covers all the costs associated with the action. Moving on, I will now switch from costs to the procedure of the application, so the calendar and so on. And then we will also talk more about the application itself. But important dates for you, super important dates for you. 7th of April, 24 hours Armenian time, which is 22 hours Central European time. This is summer time regime, so 2 hours difference. Unfortunately, if you miss this deadline by 1 minute, we will be unable to accept the application. So please, send it off earlier, even a day earlier, or at least a couple of hours. Internet sometimes is disrupted. Don't risk your work to be lost because of the missing the deadline. Application must have 2 elements, which is the descriptive section and the financial section, which is the budget, we call it. The sections must correspond to each other. That's pretty obvious. They must be consistent. You can request clarifications or ask questions related to the call until the 17th of March, as stated here, and we will publish the answers by the 24th of March. And the questions and answers document will become an integral part of the call for applications package. So that means it is binding. So I would also advise you to, if you have the application even ready before 24th of March, wait, read the questions and answers, and then adjust your application accordingly. So you don't miss out on any clarifications provided, you don't make an error. Obviously, this is something that sometimes some applicants don't really understand let's say the importance of this. And then I want to tell you a few more things about the evaluation, because you might wonder, what are the chances of winning and how you can get the grant. Never easy, but not impossible. So first we check the administrative compliance, which means basically that we will have the checklist, the same checklist as is provided to you in the application form. And these are administrative questions. So eligibility of the applicant, submission in time, complete application, used formats, etc., etc., etc. And if this is positive, if we don't find any incompliances, then you are evaluated in terms of selection criteria. And as you see here, the part 1 of the evaluation is by the 6 evaluation criteria. I will move to them in the next slide. And on these criteria, you get at least 80, I mean, maximum 80 points. And then if you are considered non-relevant, that would be an element which will disqualify you in that sense. So please consider that relevance must be met as a single item, as a single criteria, with a minimum score of at least 50 points, sorry. And then there is another component for this call, which is, let's say, specific. We will also invite and provide you the opportunity to present your application, present your project online. So there will be a call, and the assessors, the evaluators will ask questions and will score you. However, this element is not decisive. It is part of the score. So 20% for the presentation, 80% max for the documentation. And then you will be notified, and before contracting, you will be, of course, asked to confirm any formal documents. Also, at this point, we will be asking any corrections or adjustments of your application and budget before contracting. So that's the sequence. In terms of evaluation, please consider that we will go through the following evaluation criteria. So this is the match, the relevance, the correspondence to the global objective, and the specific objective of each of the lots. I mean, the lot under which you apply, the functionality, quality of the design of your solution, the proposed target groups and how they could be realistically served or reached, the scope, the possibility of multiplication, extension, or scaling up in the cities, beneficiary cities, but also beyond these cities to other municipalities. Clarity, feasibility of the description of the actions, realistic implementation schedule, and then also the role of applicant and co-applicant, if any, plus the skills and expertise of the team leader. So that's the only person in the team that will be evaluated. And finally, budget and cost effectiveness of the action. So we want, as we mentioned before, the budget to be economic and justified. And the last one is the item which could give you a percentage score higher or lower. You must provide own co-financing at 10% of the total value of the project. If you provide more, there are certain grades where you get extra points. It is all in the provided in the guidelines in detail. We are, in fact, closing the major part of the presentation, and we are ready now to explain the application form. However, we have utilized 1 hour, 30 minutes almost. So there is half an hour here. Maybe what we could do is to take questions for the moment and then run quickly through the application format, because a lot of the application, let's say, elements are self-explanatory. So I think, you know, we provided enough instructions there. Marta, if you agree, maybe we open the question and answer session, and then if time is available, we can also continue with the application. Makes sense?
Yes, I think
Okay.
instructions are well developed, as you mentioned. So
okay, so let me for the moment stop the screen sharing, and we will have everybody on the screen here, and we can ask, I mean, we can take any questions that you may have until this point. So until the moment when we finish explaining the guidelines and the call. If anybody wants to ask a question, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and go ahead. If there will be no questions, then we will, of course, happily move to present the application format. Albana, please.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation. Very detailed. Okay, I have a general question, in fact. Does NGOs that has a previous experience in innovations and doing research may apply in this call? We as sub-grantees are currently implementing, in fact, a project in Tirana that is financing by Tirana municipality for household hazardous waste.
I mean, you would have to consult with the guidelines, but this call is specifically not addressed to NGOs as such. So if your NGO would have a status of research institution, then yes, otherwise not. Or if your NGO could be considered as an SME, that could be also, that could qualify you. Why do I say NGO as an SME? Because it really depends on the definitions of SME. If your NGO runs economic activities, which is allowed in some countries, I don't know how it is in Albania, then you could be considered an SME as well. And as an SME, you could apply for these grants. Marta, do you confirm, or I said something completely off?
It is fine, and yes, it would then the NGO would fall in the category. But if
any other questions? I do not hear any other questions. I do not see hands raised. So I think we might go ahead with the application form, maybe in a sort of fast forward solution, style. And then if after the presentations there will be questions, then we'll take them again. So I guess, Marta, if you agree, I will again here, application form, I will again ask you to present unless you are too tired speaking.
Oh no, I'm here ready to present, ready and happy to present. So I will try to be quick. We will have, as mentioned before, we will have an application form with two parts. A Word format sub-grant application where the project will be described, and a budget that is instead in an Excel template. As regards the sub-grant application, both, of course, are attached to the guidelines. The sub-grant application in Word format is indeed filled with instructions. You will find a lot of text in red where we were trying to explain what we would like you to tell us in a respective section. Please follow, just read carefully the instructions and follow them as much as possible. All the relevant parts of the application must be filled in. In general, all the parts are mandatory. Of course, all the sections concerning co-applicant are optional, because if you don't have a co-applicant, you will not fill them in. And please also consider the space limitations for the narrative descriptions. We put some indicative limitation, 1 page, 2 pages. We are not so strict, but please don't write 10 pages if we ask for 2, because I mean, it gives you actually no specific advantage. Regarding the budget, it will be presented in the last slides, so I'm not saying much here, just that you also have detailed instructions, and please note that the budget is made of 3 spreadsheets, and they are all important, all must be completed. In the first, you will put the figures, but the second spreadsheet is equally important because there you have to justify why a cost is necessary and how you are making the cost estimates. So spreadsheet 2 is equally important and equally considered when we evaluate your budget. Moving to the parts, now I'm taking a look in this slide and the following, I'm taking a look at the Word format, so the sub-grant application. On the first part of general information, there is not much to say, just you will just have to put some information on the lead applicant and a brief description of who the lead applicant is and why the lead applicant and eventually the co-applicant are relevant for the application. The second part instead is quite important. In particular, I would like to discuss with you, key data on the project are quite basic, just basic information. Just be careful about consistency because this information is generally repeated in other parts of the application or in the budget. But here is just a matter of consistency. What I would like to focus on is the part description of the project. The first paragraph here, 2.5 relevance, is very important. Here you are supposed to explain why and how the project you propose is contributing to the global objective of the call and also to the specific objective of the lot that you selected. So here you have some space to explain this. Also, in this section, you're expected to explain, to describe, to illustrate how the project you propose contributes to achieve the so-called EU cross-cutting issues. Here you can find a list of the EU cross-cutting issues: democracy and good governance, environmental sustainability, promotion of human rights, gender equality, support to youth, etc., etc. On this part, I just would like to mention something. You will have, I think, 1/3 of page as space limitation, so not much space. You don't have to write everything on every cross-cutting issue. Thinking about the projects that we expect to achieve that are to the advantage, they try to improve waste management, to help municipalities. I can imagine that they may have some effect to improve the governance. I can imagine they can have some likely effect on environmental sustainability. Maybe it's less likely that they support, ethnic minorities, but maybe your project has also some positive aspects under this point of view. This is to say, just write something for the cross-cutting issues that are really relevant to your application. Don't get crazy to try to write something for each of them. One thing I would like to say about relevance, this part of the application is connected to evaluation criterion 1, relevance. It gives you up to 10 points. It is important to write this section well, because if you don't score at least 6, you are out. So please, dedicate attention to 2.5. Let's now move to the following sections. 2.6 is equally important. We have, first of all, 261, that is good news. It's an easy part. It's just a table where you are required to select the lot you want and to select the priorities or activities you want to address. So this is, here you don't have to write, just make ticks. Where you will have to write, let's say, a section that will be, in my opinion, the very heart of your application is 262. In this section, you are required to describe the objective, the structure, the features, characteristics of the innovation of smart digital solution that you want to develop in the project. You should explain how it is, the features, which problems it wants to address, how it will improve the quality of waste management, how it contributes to the lot and its activities and priorities. These 3 lines are a summary of our instructions, but you will find better instructions, more developed instructions in the application form. Equally important is 263, where you are required to explain which are the target groups you intend to reach, institutional users and the users, which benefits they should get from the innovation or the smart digital solution you want to develop, and also how you have in mind to reach these institutions or these people. So which promotional actions you want to do. I'm not talking about the 264, that is the one on the staff team, because it's important. I just, on the staff team, it's important, but we talked about it before. What I just want to know, to point out, is that 2.6 is linked to the evaluation criterion 2. It is worth 25 points. It's a very important part of the application. 2.7 is instead on focusing on feasibility of expansion and universality. Actually, in this section, you should explain how the innovation or smart digital solution can be expanded. Expanded in which sense? Maybe it is focusing on an area, but it has a perspective of being useful also for other cities or for other countries, or for, in any case, to have a wider territorial scope where it can be applied. Or maybe it has some functionalities, but such functionalities can be further expanded. There is a possibility of expansion. In this part, you should talk about the potential of expansion and multiplication of the innovation or smart digital solution that you intend to develop. You should also describe if there are any factors that impact or limit such a feasibility of expansion, that limit the feasibility of such expansion. So please talk about these aspects. Going back again to the criteria, this is linked to the criterion 3, and it is again 10 points. So please, just to summarize, 2.5 plus 2.6 plus 2.7 are already 45 points of the 80 points that you can get in the desk phase. So please consider that it is this is a heavy part of the application. In 2.7.2, actually, you are required just to specify which type of innovation smart digital solution you want to develop, open source, protected intellectual property, or other, if you have in mind another solution. This part requires you just to specify the option without further complex explanatory parts, let's say. If we move to the other slides, you see in 2.8, you will find the table with indicators. We talked about it, so I'm not explaining it again. In 2.9, you find an optional section. Here, basically, you have a space for you. If there is anything that you want to say on the application, on the proposed innovation or proposed smart digital solution, and you couldn't say before, here there is a space for you to describe whatever you consider relevant. In the following parts, 2.10 and 2.11, you are required to describe briefly the activities that you will undertake in the project to develop the innovation that you described in the previous sections, and also to provide a timetable. Actually, this timetable has the form of a Gantt chart, is a chart where you're just required to explain how long each activity will last and how long the project will last. Activities are to be described briefly. You just have to give a title to each activity, a very 1-2 paragraphs of description, and explain who does what. Who does what is especially relevant if you have a partner, because of course the roles will be two. There will be two entities working. Going ahead, there is the budget, but this will be described in the last two slides. And in 2.13, you find the curriculum vitae of the project team leader. Here you have the template. Please just use that template and don't forget to put the CV because it's important. If we move ahead, regarding part 3, there is not much to say. Just an important reminder, if you have a co-applicant, it is essential that this co-applicant gives you the mandate. I mean, gives the mandate to the lead applicant, because the application is submitted by the lead applicant. And the co-applicant, of course, has to make a formal commitment to say, okay, yes, I am here, I am the co-applicant, I am on board, and mandating the lead applicant to represent me. If you have no co-applicant, just cut that part. Finally, part 4 is a declaration by the lead applicant. Here, nothing very important to do, just read it and make sure that when you submit the application is dated, signed, and if you have a stamp, stamped by the lead applicant legal representative. So somebody that has the power of representation for the lead applicant institution. Last but not least is part 5. This is a checklist that we inserted. This checklist is developed considering the eligibility and administrative compliance criteria that Robert was briefly mentioning before. And it is a checklist that you can use when you finish your application. You just check if it complies with all the questions that are included in the checklist. If any answer is no, our advice is to take again in your hand the applications and check, because there is a high risk that the application is rejected on administrative grounds. Something is not okay and should be fixed. This is the last part of the application form.
Thank you, Marta.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Marta. Now moving on to the other part of the application, which is the budget. And as we say, the budget is the estimation of costs and also the sum of costs for all eligible categories. As explained earlier, all costs must be necessary, must be complete, so they should be included in the budget. If not, then you are not covering full cost of your action, which means losses to you. They should be also well estimated and realistic. We talked about it, economic, market-based, true. They further must be justified and explained. This is spreadsheet 2. You don't need to give us very lengthy explanations, but at least make statements for salaries that these are the standard level salaries in your organization and in the sector. Or geographically, etc. And then spreadsheet number 3, which provides the sources of funding. And here, of course, you will have to show that at least 10% of the project value is co-financed by you, and that should be relatively easy. But as Marta mentioned, the spreadsheets 1, 2, and 3 should be completed. And then, of course, things to remember with the budget. Indirect costs could be maximally 5% of the direct eligible costs, and they have a specific, separate heading for them at the bottom of the budget. The applicant's co-financing I already mentioned just before, and then there will be a check that says okay or not okay. So if you don't see okay, you should modify the co-financing level. And then there is a small benefit to those who provide higher co-financing than 10%. You can look it up in the evaluation grid. There is a score, a small score that is rewarding those who ask for a smaller proportion of the EU grant in their budget. So this is the end of the application format. And this is, I think, the end of our presentation, unless Marta, you want to add something finally?
No, I think no, we explained everything.
So we say thank you for your attention, and we still open up for any questions. I'm closing the PPT, and there is another chance if any questions came to your mind in the meantime, please feel free to ask them. I see that we have a fewer participants, but that's normal. We are towards the end of the session, and of course, those who are eager to submit applications could and should inquire all the information and collect information to be aware of what is really required, what is pertaining to the scoring, to the evaluation, because it is logical, or it is advisable that you really consider participation. And once you consider participation, you maximize your chances of winning. Otherwise, submitting an application just to submit an application doesn't really help you, doesn't help us. So that's our expectation, that we'll have maybe not a huge number of applications, but maybe some very good ones, and they will be financed. So please, if any questions, you are welcome now to raise your hand.
There is a question how we can get the presentation. I think it will be published where the guidelines for applicants are published, so it can be downloaded from there.
Yes.
So it's the same. We invite you to periodically look at the website, because in case there are, I mean, one reason is to check when the replies to your request for clarification will be published on the 24th of March. And also, if there will be corrigenda or modifications, it's important for you to keep yourself updated. By the way, don't hesitate to ask questions that may come out on the way, especially if you read the guidelines. It's quite likely that some questions will come out.
This is what I wanted to say. So maybe questions are not appearing today because we try to sort of cover everything, and maybe, you're overwhelmed with information, but read the guidelines. Next week, I think we can indicate that we will be correcting the guidelines because of the famous zeros that made our thousands into millions of euros, which we wished we had. But please follow up the location of the call. All the documents are in one place on our website, website of the project, which you already have access to, and they will be updated. And the whole package is for you a reference. So please study all the documents. If anything is unclear, you have the option to ask a question until 17th of March, if I'm not wrong. And by the 24th, we will publish. So that means on the 25th of March, this package will be complete and final with the questions and answers. And on that basis, you should be able to finalize your application. And once again, I mean, we wish you effective and productive work if you decide to apply. And we remind you that the deadline on the 7th of April must be respected. We cannot do anything about it. This is all about transparency and equal treatment of applicants. So this cannot be lifted. So we cannot come to it with some understanding that, my net was disconnected. I couldn't get access to computer, whatever. It doesn't really matter at that point. But anyway, I would like to say thank you, Marta, for being the lead in this presentation and also preparing the contents. And thanks go to everybody who wanted to participate. We do it, of course, for your benefit, but also for our benefit. So we hope for good quality applications, and we hope that Yerevan, Warsaw, and Tirana, jointly and separately, will be benefiting from some innovations, some smart ideas from you, or other applicants that might come to join this competition, this call for proposals. Once again, thank you very much for attention today. Good day to everybody, and we are really hoping to get applications in.
I also wish to thank you for attention and patience, because we were quite long. but we hope it was useful.
So I'm closing the chat now and the connection. Once again, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.